Hi everyone. Today we're going to use the Cases and Attachments API to import test cases and their respective attachments to Testmo. We will be using a simple setup with a CSV file containing the test cases and a folder with the attachments. The CSV will have columns for the most commonly used fields in a test case: a name, description, expected results, a state, an estimate, priority, some tags, and the attachments. We will be using a simple Python script that will parse the CSV file, make the API request to create the test cases, and then add the attachments for each test case. The cases endpoint allows you to create, edit, and delete up to 100 cases per request. This is designed to optimize the process, make it efficient, and allow for a smaller number of requests. Looking at Testmo's documentation, we can see that within the JSON body of the request, there needs to be an array of test case objects, and the only mandatory field for each test case is the name. After making the post request to create the test cases, we will get back each of those test case IDs. We will then use them to add the corresponding attachments. We can add up to 20 attachments per request. On fields like state and priority, the API needs the integer IDs of those values. Since Testmo is very customizable, if you have changed any of the default values, you should test and confirm what your IDs are for those fields. An easy way to do it is by creating a test case manually, changing the values of those fields, and making a GET request on each change. By default, the states IDs are 1 for draft, 2 for under review, 3 for rejected, 4 for active, and 5 for retired. And by default, the priorities IDs are 1 for high, 2 for normal, and 3 for low. Let's take a quick look at the script. We made many assumptions and overlooked some coding rules and best practices for the sake of simplicity and making this an easy to understand example. That said, this script can be run using Python and is expecting two mandatory arguments: the CSV file path, where you have your test cases, and the project ID. It also assumes that your attachments are in a folder named attachments in the same level as the Python script. We've added the mappings of the states and priorities and their respective IDs, so they can easily be changed and customized as you create more custom fields and states. In this section, we have a number of helper functions that are used to make sure all the values are in the correct formats and types, and to simplify the functions that we will see next. In the CSV loading and transformation section, we are parsing the CSV rows and creating a correctly formatted payload to be used on the API requests. As an example, we are converting minutes to microseconds, making sure fields that need the custom underscore prefix have it, and splitting the tags into a list of individual tags. We are also creating the first payload without the attachment information because the attachments are added in a dedicated API request. In the API calls section, we have the main calls of this example: one for authentication, one to create the test cases, and one to upload the attachments. One detail about the function to upload the attachments is that it will skip any missing files that might be mentioned in the CSV but are not found in the folder. And it will also respect the 20 attachments per request limit, even if there are more than 20 attachments in a single test case. In the CLI section, we have the argument parser and the main function. As you can see, outside of the mandatory CSV and project ID arguments, you can use the following arguments: base URL to specify your instance URL, token to add the Testmo token manually, attachment directory to specify a directory where the attachments are, and dry run to run the script without API requests, only parsing the CSV to see if everything is okay with that process. The script expects to find an environment variable for the base URL and token, similar to how the Testmo CLI works. So if you have already set up your Testmo CLI to work with those variables, they will also work with this script. If not, feel free to add them as arguments when running the script. In the main function, we will use a sequence of all the previous functions to parse the CSV, create the test cases, and add the attachments. Jumping to my Testmo instance, you can see I don't have anything in my repository yet. So let's run the script. It's fairly quick and it will give you some useful messages in the console output. Now let's refresh the page and you can see a new folder with all the test cases that were on the CSV. You can see that all their fields and details are here and also the respective attachments. Feel free to try it out on your own by downloading the script, CSV, and attachments on the link below. If you're already comfortable with these APIs, you can also add another layer where you create the folder structure with the folders API and specify the folder when creating the test cases. We hope this example was useful to introduce you to the Cases and Attachments API, and we are thrilled to find out how you'll be using them in your workflows. I hope you have a great day and happy testing.